Hey guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, if you love bookish content, and please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy these kind of chatty tag videos. It's already time for the mid-year freakout book tag, which means that I'm gonna be answering a list of questions all to review the first 6 reading months of the year. So this is a chatty video where we're gonna look at the best, the worst so far, and the goals going forward. I was trying to find the list of questions for this tag, but I saw that they were not always the same. So instead, I'm using Jesse the Reader's mid-year reading check-in book tag, which I found. So what he did is he took the questions of the original tag and kind of revamped them. I had a look at the questions, I really liked them, so this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to link his channel, the questions, and also the original creators of this tag, starting with some story graph stats because I love looking at this kind of data. I'm going to link my account below in case you want to follow me. I have read 34 books out of 60 as of today. 60 was my year-end goal. I was a bit more conservative this year. Last year I read close to 100, but this year I knew a lot was going on. There was a move and I had so much paperwork to do that I knew that reading is probably gonna be a bit slimmer in the beginning of the year, but that is okay. I'm still on track. My main moods are emotional, mysterious, dark, which makes sense if we look at my most read genres later on. Then I read mostly medium-paced books, quite a few fast-paced, and then a few slow-paced. What are the slow-paced books? It's Split Tooth, Lord of the Rings, the second book, and The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. I wouldn't say that The Lost Village is a slow pace. I'd probably say it's medium to fast. 56% of the books I've read are between 300 and 499 pages. I've read also quite a few books that are under 300 pages. And I read 2 books, so 6%, that are over 500 pages long. I read 85% fiction books and 15% nonfiction. That pretty much checks out. I hope that towards the end this balances out a bit better. For my most read authors, there's Alana K. Arnold with 3 books. That is because I read her middle grade book series that consists of 3 books, where the first one is called A Boy Called Bat, which I can very much recommend. Then I read 2 novellas by Ali Hazelwood, and also 2 books by Catriona Ward, which is one of my new favorite authors. For languages, I read 30 books in English and 4 books in German, which is not entirely bad, but my year-end goal was to read, I think it was 15 books in German, so I have to really try harder here. My average rating so far is 3.84 stars, so close to 4 stars, which is not bad at all. Now for the tag questions, there's 12 of them, and I'm probably going to talk about more than just one book per question, so I'm going to try to keep it very short. Question number 1. What's the best book you've read so far this year? For me, this is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is literary horror. We have a few scientists, among them Leah, who go on a submarine for an expedition, but then instead of just staying there for a few weeks, they stay away for, I think it's 6 months, because suddenly something goes wrong with the submarine. People don't know if they're coming back, and then at some point Leah does return to her wife Miri, but she's a changed person. Let's leave it at that. Something is very, very different with her, and there's a bit of body horror in this one as well, so you have to be comfortable with that. On the literary horror level, but also on an emotional level, it's just an absolutely amazing read. What is the most disappointing book you've read so far this year? One of them is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This author blew up with The House in the Cerulean Sea, which that book I really liked. I give it a good rating. But Under the Whispering Door, I couldn't help but compare it a lot to The House in the Cerulean Sea, because in its core they were very similar stories, where you have a very unlikable character in the beginning who gets put in a new situation where they encounter a bunch of new people that suddenly or slowly start to melt his heart, and that main character is supposed to redeem themselves throughout the story. For me, it was very clear from the beginning why the characters were chosen to be the way they are. They were all supposed to melt my heart and get me on their side and make me feel warm and fuzzy, but it ended up making me feel emotionally manipulated, because every single dialogue was meant for me to go like, oh, That's what it felt like. And the entire book was just a bit too long. It was too lengthy. It just wasn't for me. Then I also finished the 3 novellas for Loath to Love You by Ali Hazelwood. I didn't hate these stories. I'm okay with giving Ali Hazelwood another read, but I'm disappointed because all 3 couples in these 3 separate stories were essentially the same, just with a different font, different names, different kind of circumstances, but when you boil it down, you read the same story over and over and over again. So you have the tiny, tiny, petite woman in STEM. That part is great, the STEM part, but the STEM woman who's super focused on their career, kind of emotionally unavailable, and then they meet this 6-foot plus tall guy who is often compared to something as like a mountain or a Viking, and a lot of the stories are honestly just, I'm so tiny, I'm like 5 foot something, and he's like 6 foot, a 6 foot plus mountain of muscle. I just wish she would have switched it up a bit, maybe ethnicity wise, height wise, weight wise, anything wise. And then there was the disappointment, Passenger 23 by Sebastian Fitzek. I talk about this in my, I think it was February wrap-up. I'll link it for you to see all the details, but this is supposedly one of the best thriller writers in Germany. His name is similar to John Grisham over there, so his books are literally everywhere and make it to all the bestseller lists, but this was not good. This was kind of garbage. 3, what's the best book recommendation you've received this year? I have here We Spread by Ian Reid. I've seen this around and then I finally picked it up because Jessica from Lady Lovestead Reads gave it such an amazing rating, and we share a lot of the similar reading tastes, especially when it comes to like thriller or horror. I'm gonna link her channel down below. This was a 5-star, if not 4.5 star for me. This is a horror novel where in the center of it, the scare factor really comes from losing your own memories, losing your autonomy, dementia, and aging. Penny is a retired pensioner who cannot longer live by herself anymore and is then moved into a home, into a group home. And that is when suddenly very creepy things start to happen around her. And the question is if it is something that is actually happening, or is it just her not being able to grasp time and space anymore. There's also very interesting questions in here about identity. What happens to that when you get to an older age? This was just so good. I flew through this. 4, what was your first DNF of the year? I have to pass. I have not DNF'd a book yet. Maybe I should, but I'm just really bad at that, honestly. I'm too stubborn. 5, a new release from this year that you've read and your thoughts on it, good or bad. Well, I just did my May wrap-up with 3 books in it, and 2 of those were arcs that I just read from NetGalley with books that came out this year. So I'm just gonna link you to that video, but in short, one of them is Looking Last Sound by Katrina Ward. And once again, this is literary horror. I think we see a theme here. A very twisty story that starts out with a coming-of-age story where a young Walter Harlow with his parents goes to a seaside cottage to spend his summer there, where he meets a boy and a girl his age, and things ensue from there. And the horror comes from a dysfunctional family dynamic, a very dysfunctional friend and relationship dynamic, just people doing disgusting things to each other, but then also there's a murder that will turn your stomach, where females are attacked happen. It all comes together, but at the same time it leaves you with so many questions. But as you read it, you start to understand what is actually happening to these characters, and it is nothing that I have seen coming. A book that came out in the first half of the year that you want to read, and a book coming out in the second half of the year that you're anticipating. The book that already came out is The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. I think this is kind of a retelling about La Llorona, and the book that I'm waiting for to come out is The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas, which is described as a supernatural western. Has to do with a rancher and also vampires. I don't know too much about it, but again, it sounds super intriguing. And also A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. This is the first time ever authorized novel to return to the world of Shirley Jackson. 7, what's the most beautiful book you've added to your collection or a beautiful book you'd like to own? I think it is this. It's Chloe and the Kaishao Boys by Meiko Yuto. And this was part of my Filipino book haul. And I don't know, I just like the summery colors on this one. Very pretty. 8, what genre have you read most from this year? Let's pull out my Storygraph stats. It's thriller, horror, and then contemporary, followed by mystery, LGBTQI+, and romance. 9, do you feel your reading tastes have changed or shifted at all this year? A new genre you love, new favorite trope, or a new favorite theme? Well, I think this year really established my love for literary horror, if anything. I found so many good ones this year already, and whenever I find a new book where the synopsis goes in that direction, it is something I usually add to my TBR. I remain open to read more romance, so that's good. That's usually a genre I've never read before. I think I'm drifting away from fantasy more and more. While I still will read a fantasy book here and there, it is just not one of my top genres anymore that I gravitate towards. That was more when I was a teenager, but at this point I think I have to admit that I don't really identify as a pure fantasy reader anymore. 10, if you set any bookish goals for yourself this year, how are they going? Well, I mentioned that I'm trying to read 15 books in German this year, so I'm working towards that. I for sure have enough here on my physical bookshelf to read. And then there's my classics challenge. I think I had 18 books on that list. Essentially all of the physical classics that I own, I made a goal to read them all, or at least attempt to. I mean, realistically it's not going to happen, but most of them. I think I'm at 3.5. This definitely requires some improvement. 11, what book format have you been gravitating towards this year? Back again with the Storygraph stats. I've read 38% in print, 32%, so very close, is digital, which means usually my iPad and using either NetGalley or Libby, and 29% audio. So the split is, I'd say, pretty even, when before it was like 100% print. And I really enjoy this. It feels like I'm mixing things up. It keeps me excited to either pick up, you know, the audiobook if I'm tired of reading a physical book, or switching to an ebook if, you know, I want to mix it up. So I'm very happy with the split. 12, finally a book you've read so far this year that you feel embodies the vibe of your reading year. This was a hard one, and I picked a book that I thought I would never read. It's Book Lovers, Out of All Books by Emily Henry. Not so much that it captures my reading year, but just my year in general. So this book takes place during the summer, it's hot, during a vacation in a nice town. I kind of feel that vibe right now because it is summer, it is nice outside. I recently came back from vacation. Also, this book is very family focused, which resonates with me. And then there's quite a few chapters in there about work, which is, you know, always something that I have on my mind, so it just works somehow. I don't know how else to describe this. Well, and then obviously there's some romance in that book, which I have that in my life at the moment, so I guess that is why I chose this book. So that's all for the questions. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to this part of the video, leave me a sunshine emoji for the summer. Please let me know if you have uploaded this video or you're planning to, because I'd be so happy to watch it. I love watching these kind of half-year recap videos. I usually always find cool books to add to my TBR when people talk so passionately about them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a great start to your summer and reading summer. Subscribe and like this video if you want, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.